My name is Elias Vance. For 20 years, I've worked for the city's Department of Archival Maintenance. It's a job so dull it borders on existential dread, dusting microfiche, organizing documents no one has looked at since the Cold War, and ensuring the ventilation doesn't destroy the brittle paper. But 3 weeks ago, my routine was destroyed by a sound and a discovery in the forgotten sub-basement of City Hall. The sub-basement is officially sealed. They say it was due to asbestos, but the official report is too neatly typed. It's a vast subterranean cavern where the city stored its true forgotten history. The things too strange, too embarrassing, or too dangerous to remain in the accessible archives. My predecessor, an old man named Arthur, who smelled perpetually of mothballs and regret, gave me the key on my first day, whispering, "Don't go down there, son. The past is heavier than you think." I didn't listen. I was tracing a leak in the main drainage system. It led me to a narrow, rusted metal door disguised behind a wall of defunct water heaters. The key Arthur gave me, a heavy brass skeleton with no markings, slid into the lock like it was meant to be there. The air that rushed out when I opened the door was not musty. It was cold. A deep, absolute zero kind of cold that steals the moisture from your lungs. Inside, it was a museum of obsolescence. Row upon row of metal shelves held massive, open-reel magnetic tapes, ancient photographic plates, and thick leather-bound ledgers whose bindings had long since rotted away. All of it was blanketed in a fine, silver-gray dust that shimmered in the beam of my flashlight. Then I heard it. A faint, distorted sound. A whisper caught in static. Shh. Shh. It sounded like a radio that couldn't quite find its frequency. I traced the sound to a single console in the center of the room. It was an old Nagra 4S reel-to-reel tape recorder, plugged into a wall outlet that must have been live for 70 years. A single tape was mounted, spinning slowly, emitting the barely audible, ghostly noise. I sat down, heart hammering, and gently adjusted the playback gain. The static cleared, replaced by a human voice, deep, resonant, and clipped, like a news announcer from the 1940s. Archivist log, October 12, 1947. Recording of subject 097. The announcer's voice vanished. For a moment, there was only tape hiss. Then, the static returned, but now it carried something else. A melody. It wasn't music. It was a sequence of notes that felt mathematically precise, a minor key sequence repeated over and over, growing fractionally louder with each loop. It wasn't sad or scary, but it was wrong. It was like listening to the sound of an invisible gear grinding against the universe. I couldn't stop listening. The melody seemed to be tunneling into my mind. I pressed the stop button. The machine whirred to a halt. The silence that followed was deafening. I removed the tape, sealed it in an archival box, and smuggled it back up to my brightly lit, modern office. I knew I had found something that was never meant to be heard again. I knew I had just woken something up. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, I've been researching the tape, the console, and the hidden archivist who made the recording. And the deeper I go, the more the static seems to follow me. My research into the old records revealed the identity of the original archivist, Dr. Alistair Kronos. He worked for the city from 1935 to 1950, before his records simply stop. There's no resignation, no retirement, no death certificate. He simply ceased to exist in any municipal record after November 1950. I found his old employee folder. It contained only 2 things: his initial application and a single handwritten note stapled to the inside cover. The note simply read, "The tapes are the doors. Close the doors." Over the next few days, I risked several more trips to the sub-basement. I was searching for the rest of his logs, the Chronos tapes. They were harder to find this time. It was as if the shelves had subtly shifted, hiding them. I found 5 more tapes, all labeled with the same stark black ink. Tape 098, subject Gamma 7. Tape 099, subject Mu 4. Tape 100, subject The Architect. Tape 101, subject The Map. Tape 102, subject The Archivist. Tape 102 was blank, but the others, they were terrifying. Tape 098 detailed the interrogation of a man named Thomas Miller, a surveyor arrested in 1948 for mapping non-Euclidean city structures. On the tape, Miller's voice is soft, terrified, yet insistent. "The streets are wrong. The avenues fold in on themselves. I saw a building on Fifth Avenue, a white stone tower that was always 42 stories high, but when I measured it, the base had 1,450 feet of circumference, and the peak had 1,450 feet of circumference. It was a cylinder that was 42 stories tall. How can a cylinder have a street-facing wall?" "Mr. Miller, you are describing impossible architecture. Buildings are rectilinear." No, you don't understand. The city is not built on the ground. It's built on a sound, a low frequency that holds the angles in place, and when the sound wavers, the walls breathe. I drew the lines, doctor. I mapped the intersections where the light bends backward. I saw the people walking inside out. The tape cuts off with a sound like shattering glass, followed by a wet, gurgling scream that is abruptly silenced by the click of the recorder being shut off. I took the tape out, hands shaking. I was not listening to a historical archive. I was listening to the official record of the city's slow, systematic breakdown in the face of impossible geometry. The melody from the first tape, subject 097, was playing on a low loop in my mind now. It had wormed its way past the rational gatekeepers of my thoughts. I started seeing things in the office. The corners of the filing cabinet seemed to blur. The clock on the wall sometimes ticked backward for a second. I knew I had to listen to tape 100, The Architect. That felt like the key. I returned to the sub-basement late Saturday night, carrying only a thermos of coffee and a small, high-powered LED lantern. The air was colder than ever, and the silence felt heavy, pressurized. I loaded tape 100 onto the old Nagra. The tape began not with the archivist, but with a series of heavy, rhythmic sounds, a hammer striking stone, followed by the hiss of a draftsman's breath. Tape log 100. Subject, The Architect. Current date, January 3rd, 1950. The city will be complete in 23 days. This voice was unlike any other. It was calm, devoid of all emotion, but its articulation was perfect. Every syllable was a polished stone. Dr. Kronos asks me why I build the way I do. He asks why the foundation of the new federal building extends 3 miles into the bedrock, but only supports 2 stories of wood and plaster. I told him, the function of the structure is not to be a building. A long pause, filled only by the distant, rhythmic tapping. The city is a resonator. Every spire, every pipe, every trolley line is tuned to capture a specific frequency. The frequency of the echo. I could hear Dr. Kronos cough nervously in the background. The echo, sir? From where does it echo? From the places that were. Before the light. Before the angles. Before gravity settled on this small rock. We are building the architecture of the unpresent. We are creating a lattice for the entities who are composed of time itself to finally rest their weary, multi-dimensional heads. You mean you're building a trap? No, doctor. I am building a home, and the final component is the archival center. It must be at the Nexus. It must contain the Chronos tapes. They are the record of the transition. They are the index finger pointing toward the new reality. My head snapped up. The archival center. He was talking about the sub-basement I was currently sitting in. The city will be finished, and the city will sing the song that opens the final door. The tape ended abruptly with a deep, grinding sound, like an enormous tuning fork being struck. It was the same musical sequence, but amplified 1,000 times. I scrambled to remove the tape, the deep, resonant frequency vibrating through the metal chair and into my bones. The melody was no longer just in my mind. It was in the air, vibrating the dust on the shelves. I had to find the last tape. Tape 102, The Archivist, the one that was supposedly blank. I couldn't bring myself to listen to tape 102 in the sub-basement. I took it upstairs to my cold, fluorescent-lit office, where I hoped the modern world could fight back the old horrors. The tape was indeed blank at the start, only pure, clean hiss. I listened for 10 minutes. Nothing. I was about to give up when, suddenly, the hiss shifted. Then, a faint, weak voice, barely audible above the noise. It was Dr. Alistair Kronos. Log 102. Final entry. I have been listening. I have been watching the city. They finished the structure yesterday. The architect smiles all the time now. He doesn't look at the buildings. He looks at the gaps between them. The city is a machine, and the tapes are the fuel. I tried to burn them. The paper, the film, the records of the subjects, but the magnetic tape, the tape resists. It is alive. It is recording me now, even though I have disabled the microphone. A long pause, followed by a sound of heavy, rhythmic breathing. I understand the instruction now. The tapes are the doors, and the melody, the Chronos note, is the key. The architect hid them in the sub-basement, the nexus point. He didn't want them destroyed. He wanted them to be found. To stop it, someone has to rewrite the narrative. They have to overwrite the sound. The only way to close the door is to put something else on the tape. A louder truth. A sound that wasn't there before. The rhythmic breathing stops. He's coming. I hear the music. It's not a melody. It's a calculation. It's counting down to the final convergence. The tape cuts off, not with a click, but with a violent tearing sound, followed by the familiar, high-pitched, wrong melody of Subject 097, which now begins to play over the tape hiss. I ripped the headphones off. The air in my office was vibrating. The melody was outside my window, humming from the streetlights. The corners of the room were starting to blur just like Thomas Miller described. I knew what I had to do. I had to go back down, load tape 102 onto the Nagra, and record something new. Something that would drown out the Chronos note. Something that wasn't part of the architect's design. I have my own voice. It's the only weapon I have left against the singing city. And I am going back to the basement, right now.